Gregor, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
No, it's a pleasure.
It's been a long time coming. I've been very fortunate to follow your journey on social media, which
Thank you.
has been lekker.
Yeah.
But before we get into it, just a couple of things. How long have you been a PH? Where did it all start?
I did a degree in conservation at this place called Sarsveld, which is now Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University. And straight after that, I actually did my South African PH license then in 2004. And then 2005, I went to Zimbabwe to an area called Chori South as an apprentice. And then I met a guy by the name of Nigel Thiessen there who also hunted in Tanzania for Luke Samaras back in the day. And he was actually joining Jack Brittingham the following year in 2006. And he offered me a position there as a apprentice / camp manager kind of vibe. So yeah, I took it, Didn't know what I was getting myself into, but yeah, that's how I got to Tanzania. Yeah, 2006 I started there and haven't looked back.
Really? Yeah. You had a gig here in the Eastern Cape for a while, though.
Yes, so in 2013, the outfit I was working for, they actually sold. And I was just sick and tired of living out of a suitcase for so long. So I actually resigned and I quit.
Okay.
And I moved back here. For my sins, I actually ran a butchery for a couple of years here in East London.
Okay.
And at the same time, I got married to Amber and had 2 little boys. And then, with the Rances, they offered me a position to take over Rance Safaris, which I did. And I sold up the butchery and I went back hunting. And then that got me ultimately back into Tanzania again.
Nice. Yeah. So you did conservation. So then what made you decide that you wanted to become a PH?
Actually, I went with the Rances when I was 13 years old to Sapi Safari area in Zimbabwe. Okay. Back in those days, you could, as a South African, you could just buy a big package, whatever, and just do a self-guided thing. And I guess that's where my passion ignited, I'd say. That was many years ago, 1995, and I loved it so much. That's all I ever wanted to do after that. Yeah.
And the Rances were kind of like a pinnacle in the Eastern Cape fraternity when it came to kudu and stuff. You were hands-on involved with
Absolutely, that.
And your perspective on how that went down and
well, the way they did it very slowly. They in particular, their kudu management was something incredible what they did. Johnny Jr. pretty much headed that up. So instead of shooting the big bulls all the time, they were just concentrating on taking out the inferior genetics. And I think they did that before I even joined. They did it for close to 15 or 20 years.
Oh, really?
So when I got involved with them, they had probably the best kudu population, certainly in the Eastern Cape. There's no doubt about that. So it's a time-consuming thing, and everyone would ridicule them and saying, "Oh, you being ridiculous the way they're doing things." But proof is in the pudding, man. For them to shoot a kudu that's bigger than 55 inches was a walk in the park. It's incredible place and well looked after. So they did a phenomenal job there. Something a lot of people can actually learn from.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest problem there is time. A lot of outfitters don't have time like that. We would only probably put in 6 or 7 safaris, like high-end safaris like that. And I guess it's not enough for the volume that the guys do.
Do you think that's a bit of an issue in the South African industry at the moment? Is volume?
I do, yeah. I don't think that there's enough animals to go around. I think the industry is doing well as a whole, but I think there could certainly be a shortage of animals, good quality animals, such as kudu. For sure, everyone wants to shoot a kudu.
Yeah.
And then you often see, now you can cringe on social media. You see the stuff that gets posted. I mean, come on. Yeah. It's a difficult one.
But a mate of mine always used to tell me that and he actually said this before COVID hit, and it's kind of now like relative now after this whole little boom, is that all the animals that are your longer maturing animals will take 10, 12 years to mature.
Yeah.
South Africa's going to run into an issue where they're going to be like extremely hard to find.
Yeah.
And I think we're slowly but surely getting to that point now. Because if you look around the country, I mean, to find big eland, big kudu, all that sort of stuff, it's a bit of a scarcity.
Yeah.
But what was the end goal for Ron Safaris to get to?
Well, they were in a fortunate position where it wasn't a money-making thing. They've got other business interests that they make a living out of. So it was more of a passion project for them. Yeah, and they really wanted to be able to offer very big kudu, big nyala, big buffalo. So yeah, the way they went about it, we were very strict on quotas, and it had to be the right animal too. You couldn't just go shoot a big 58-inch kudu. It had to be the right one, otherwise you'll get your knuckles wrapped there. So yeah.
But part of the cool program around the runs, I remember a couple of South Africans were fortunate enough to actually hunt the property.
Yeah,
that's when you took out your management bulls and stuff.
Yeah.
A topic that's kind of like crept into the podcast and stuff is SA hunters, particularly biltong hunters and stuff. Do you think they've been done a little bit hard by the industry where it is currently, overpaid prices on kudu and stuff like that?
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, it's a hard one. I mean, if you have you've got a shoe shop and you're selling a pair of shoes and you can sell that exact same pair for multiple times the amount, then why not,
Sure.
But I think there are still a lot of places where the South African guys can go. And it's going to be particularly management hunts, not your trophy hunts. And in saying that, I mean, you get very few guys who are interested in shooting the really big stuff. It's they want to fill their fridges and take home some biltong for the family. Yeah. So, but yes, they do get hard done by for sure.
But so you started in Zim, moved over to Tanzania, came back to South Africa. You were your first couple of years in Tanzania. You were bachelor, finding your feet.
Absolutely, yeah. It's completely single. I tried to have a few relationships, but that didn't work out. Obviously, I was in the bush for like 9 or 10 months of the year. If I wasn't hunting, I was also a pilot. I flew for anti-poaching for our company. We had 5 areas at the time.
Chopper or
ultralight, a Bathawk, yeah.
Sure, that's cool.
Yeah. So I actually flew it up from Nelspruit to Tanzania. It was a 11-day trip of death. Yeah. I ran out of fuel a few times. But yeah, no,
I've always wondered, is that something you would recommend a young professional hunter to try and find out?
Absolutely. The thing is, in Tanzania, you have to do, unless you can really prove that you've been in the game in other countries for a long time, you have to do a 2-year apprenticeship under a single company, and then that company will vouch for you to do your exam. The exams, it's more on the law and everything, because obviously if a company is going to back you to become a professional hunter, then you're gonna sort of know what you're doing. So it's more of a law thing. You do a bit of shooting and stuff. It's about a 3-day exam. You do interviews with the government and everything. But you have to do the hard yards and get that 2 years behind you. And I mean, you'll be doing anything from anti-poaching to building camps to opening roads to, it's all the work that nobody really likes to do. But if you're prepared to do it and get your foot in the door, then that's the way to go. And you need to be young, because you're not going to get paid much to do that. So you have to be really passionate about it. You have to know that that's what you want to do. And that's unfortunately the only way you can.
But it's also important to try and do it when you're young, like you said,
Absolutely.
before you have responsibilities.
Exactly.
Because that was one of my...
Yeah.
I went up literally just for 3 or 4 months. And I realized very quickly that if I was going to start a family, this wasn't
No.
the most ideal situation, you know. So, but what a lot of people don't understand is that, just to explain to us a little bit about, at the time when I went up, we were given a GPS, and they're saying there's where your concession is for the year or for the 6 months or whatever it was. We need to go and build a camp, and that's what happens a lot of the time. So, how do the concessions that side work?
So I think a whole lot of the blocks are in different batches. So they'll come up every 5 years or something. And then it's actually it's an online auction that goes on.
Okay.
But what the guys are trying to do is trying to encourage the government to make the leases a lot longer.
Yeah.
So that puts more responsibility on the outfitters to actually look after the area, not just go in 1 year, shoot everything, overshoot their quotas, and then bail out because they've overshot. So by extending the lease period, you're encouraging the outfitter to actually be conservative on their quotas and look after the area, do the time, the anti-poaching, the community development, build relationships, and look after the area and make it better year on year, which is it's easy to do if you put the effort in. Yeah.
Understanding that part, do you think that had like a positive impact on your career going forward? On managing and the conservation on particular quotas?
I don't understand the question.
So for South Africa,
yeah,
I feel a lot gets misread in management. So a young professional hunter doesn't really understand what it means to be a professional hunter.
Sure.
So he comes out and first blue wildebeest they see, they blow the shit into it, and then they move on to the next one, you know, and they tick off that animal, and then they've got a list.
But I think that all comes through communication too. So with Rand Safaris, I had quite a few younger guys working underneath me, and you've just got to get them to buy into the whole idea. And once in that scenario, it is quite easy because you could show them what the results are. And you say, hey, you don't shoot that one. Don't do it. This is what it looks like. Show them photographs. Say, this is what we're looking for. This is the traits of a specific kudu we're looking for, not necessarily just inches. It must be age. It must be everything, what the body condition is. You take it all into account. But you need to get the buy-in from the guys. And they've got to know that there are consequences when you a repeat offender on making mistakes. You know? Yes, we all make mistakes, but not all the time. You need to learn from your mistakes and then make better decisions after that. So I think it's just a matter of getting everybody to buy into the idea of what your whole objective is on whatever property you're on. Yeah.
But like in Tanzania, you kind of forced to that opinion. From what I'm understanding?
Yeah, well, Tanzania is a different beast. How it works there is the outfitter would recommend to the government what quota they would suggest, and they can justify it. So it's a whole different up there. It's a whole different beast. Like, I mean, a small area, there's 90,000 hectares. Jeez. Yeah, that's a small area. We have your bigger areas are 150, 250,000 hectares, and there are no fences. There's a boundaries, a road or a river or a mountain or just a random line somewhere in the bush. So it's different, and it's a whole different way of thinking. Your whole management is a lot less there. It's more of looking after the area, the habitat, and stopping people from coming in and encroaching on the hunting areas.
How is that going up there, the land encroachment? Is it a big
There was a huge I think it started about 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, a huge influx in elephant poaching. It was massive. But the Tanzanian government got the military involved, and they put a quick stop to it.
Okay.
Yeah, they were ruthless, and they did it. And now you hardly ever hear of any elephant poaching incidents or anything like that. There, the biggest problem is it's petty stuff. So it would be timber poaching. So the guys will come in on, but it's not. There's no like massive scale to it. It'll be 5 guys coming in on a bicycle, and they They use hand saws. Yeah, hand saws. They cut a couple planks and then they take it out. But that's all in the wet season. Because a lot of, also you got to remember, a lot of the dangerous game blocks in central southern Tanzania, it's inaccessible.
Okay.
The months of December all the way through to May sometime, because that's when the big rains are. And all that black cotton soil, you can't actually get in at all.
Okay.
So a lot of the time we'll use boats for anti-poaching, or just try your best, whatever you can do, because you can't get around by vehicle at all.
And you guys have to physically get involved with the anti-poaching there?
Absolutely, okay. Yeah.
And the government allows you, because
whatever we do there, you always have a government representative with you, a game scout, we'd call them.
And you guys obviously work closely with the locals. Do you have to, part of the concession permits or whatever, you have to give a bit of the meat back?
There's a whole lot of things. I'm not fully versed in it, but I know you have to, on your management plans and stuff, you have to, an X amount of the money generated has to go to the community.
Okay.
And you have to prove that with invoices and everything, whether it's building schools or clinics or supporting a family, but it amounts to hundreds of thousands of dollars every year with each hunting block. So that's on the community side. And then also you have to fund the anti-poaching. You have to supply people, you have to supply equipment, vehicles, motorbikes. So it's a huge investment. Yeah.
Last time I was there, Craig, it was actually quite I felt very safe. I didn't feel like a lot of threat. But do you think that's probably a deterring factor to a lot of foreigners wanting to come out?
I'd say Tanzania is probably the safest country I've ever been in Africa. Yeah. It's just the people there have just got a different demeanor to them. They've got no aggression. They're just happy people. And I think, yes, they don't have the history that we do have in South Africa with all the apartheid and all of that. So there's not that hatred. I think they got independence in 1960 something. So they've been running their own show for a long time. But it's just the people that make that place so special. They just a loving, caring, just a gentle people. Yeah.
Have you found, especially like over the past couple of years, I've seen it become more popular on social media, but being on the ground in Tanzania, is that something that's...
I think it takes quite a lot of time and effort to get into the right hunting community, if you want to say it as such. Tanzania, yes, it can be compared to the likes of Zambia or maybe even Zimbabwe, but it's just, I think what separates it from the other countries is just the species diversity.
Yeah.
There's just so much to hunt there, and I'm fortunate enough to hunt for a company that I think we've got 16 hunting blocks now, and we can offer absolutely every species available to hunt in Tanzania. So I think that's the biggest draw card, but it does come with the issue of it being so expensive. And it's not only expensive just because it's Tanzania. It's logistically, it's an absolute nightmare to get your camps up. I mean, every year we pull out all the camps down and then they get rebuilt the following year. So logistically, it's a huge nightmare, and the block fees that the outfitters have to pay the government, it's exorbitant. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars every year for that, just to have the right to hunt the hunting block. So it's not as if just because it's popular and the outfitters can charge what they want. That's not the case at all. I mean, I'd say very few outfitters actually make a big living out of it. I mean, a lot of the guys will have other businesses that support the hunting. Like in my case, the guys I work for, they've got totally different business interests to this, and this is more, again, it's like a passion project for them. The owner really likes to look after areas. I mean, we've had areas for many years now, we're not even hunting them, we're just trying to get it back to what it was, just move the people out. We've moved in illegally, and just to get the game back in. So it's I'm very fortunate to hunt with these guys.
What is the company?
It's called Kilombero North Safaris.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you guys, I mean, I've read a couple of books and all that. Do you think if you guys move out tomorrow, that land will become null and void?
Absolutely.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. So if as soon as your presence and your all that you do on the ground there is gone, I promise you, within, if you have a good block full of game, and you've got a community right on the edge, and they know that you're not coming back, I promise you, there'll be a huge difference in the following year. Huge. They move in, it's called slash and burn. They cut. What they want to do is they improve the grazing for their cattle.
Yeah.
So they cut the trees down. They just literally will cut 10,000,
Yeah.
or 1,000 hectares down over the period of a couple of months. And then they burn it all once it's dry. And then now the grass will grow better because there's no trees. And also they're getting rid of the tsetse flies by removing the trees. I think the tsetses they need shade and stuff to breed. So yeah, they'll rape an area very, very quickly.
Is this the locals or?
Yeah, locals.
One of the strangest things I stressed a little bit when we saw on the news, there was this whole Chinese summit with all these African leaders.
Yeah.
And I remember flying into what was that camp you mentioned earlier, Kilimanjaro, but I don't think it was quite there. But anyway, as we were flying in, there were these massive rice fields.
Yeah. Rice is huge there. Yeah.
And is that from the Chinese government for locals?
No, that's the locals.
Really?
Yeah, rice is a big industry in central southern Tanzania.
Okay.
And it is the best rice.
Oh, really?
I promise you, yeah. A lot of the guys bring back rice from there.
So they'll decimate a couple of hectares just for that.
Yeah, I think with rice it has to be grown in a specific area, and so that's not really an issue. But it's more. There's a tribe called the Wasukuma who literally just move through and into an area with their cattle, and they just absolutely destroy everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because
and then they're opportunistic too. So then they'll put like snares out for animals and cable snares for hippos, and they'll poison the river systems to kill the fish, to sell the fish, and yeah, it's just a snowball effect. If we had to move out, it's just a mess.
And there haven't been any sort of programs or anything like that to move towards these locals and educate them a little bit about conservation.
Absolutely, I think we do it all the time. And by employing a lot of the community, they sort of see what we're doing there and what we're trying to achieve. And then they realize, shit, this is my living too, So then they try to get the buy-in of the community there. But it only takes one or two bad apples to spoil a great community. Just takes one or two guys to spoil it. But it's, as I said, it's a lot of the time, if it's policed and you have a presence there, it's 99% of the time it's just petty stuff. Sometimes you actually feel sorry for the guys. Husband and wife will come in and they'll just be gathering honey innocently. But then when they're doing that, they smoke out the beehives, and then they don't like walking through the long grass, so then they burn, and then they can burn. The fires can go on for days, and then that messes us around. Or it's guys catching fish in the drying up pools in the rivers, and then they just smoke their 20 fish, and then they would carry it out and sell it in the village. So a lot of it is petty stuff, and you got to have a bit of a heart and feel sorry for the guys, but legally they're not allowed to be there. Sure. So
it's kind of crazy listening to the stories, because I think my only interaction when I was there with the locals was the Messiah.
Yeah,
they were wonderful people.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed them.
Yeah.
But I kind of get the feeling now that the other tribes and stuff around there, it's kind of like just surviving today, and we'll worry about tomorrow when we get there type thing.
Yeah.
And
actually, you speak about the Maasai. They're an extremely intelligent community, very intelligent. And I think they almost look down at our way of life a little bit. They're extremely proud and proud of what they do and how they live their life day to day. But the problem now is there's so many of them, and we all understand carrying capacities and farming and how to run cattle, sheep, and goats. And it's actually got to a stage now where there's just too many of them. Way too many of them.
In one tribe, or do they break off?
No, they throughout Masaland, northern Masaland, southern Masaland, all over the show. There's just simply too many of them, and there are too many sheep, cattle, and goats, and they're literally eating themselves out of house and home. It's actually bad. So to give you a bit of history about it, so in the past, we're talking 50, 100 years ago, they would be nomadic. They'd be nomadic, and they'd follow the rains, and where the grass is, that's where they'd go. And then once it dries up, then they'd move out, go back to Kenya or whatever it is. But now with a lot of the NGOs especially from Europe, they'll come into a community and say, "Oh, shame, they need water, they need this, they need that." So they'll put a borehole in for them. And now, historically, when they used to move off and follow the rains, now with that borehole water, they can actually stay, and they do stay. And so now they're not resting any of the ground or the vegetation, and they just consistently hammering it year after year after year, whether it's floods or whether it's drought or whatever. They just stay, and good conditions, bad conditions. I mean, in my 20 years of being in Tanzania, I can see the difference in the vegetation and erosion and everything over that just 20 years. It's easily to see that there's just too much livestock.
Because they don't char venison, eh?
No, they don't.
It's livestock.
The kids sometimes will eat an eland or something like that, or if you have a leopard bait out, and they sometimes steal the bait. But that's usually the youngsters that are just being naughty, I guess. But yeah, they don't, generally speaking, they don't eat venison at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Craig, normal season for professional hunter there?
It used to only start in 1st of July until December, but now that's changed. It's throughout the year.
Okay.
So that helps us a hell of a lot. I mean, back in the day, if we had 80 hunting days, that would be seen as a great season. But now, with us being able to hunt in Masaland for the months of, I'd say, March, April, May, June, it's a huge help. So it's like doubled our season. Okay. So yeah.
And then what was the reason for them extending it a little bit?
I think they realized it was probably pressure from the outfitters saying, "Please, man, we also want to hunt, because we can hunt the Masaland areas in the northern Tanzania early season, and when it's really good." So yeah, when I book clients, I definitely get them in there April, May, June.
Okay.
Simply because it's not that dusty, and there's a lot of game around.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasant time to hunt. The temperatures are nice. When you go towards the end of the season, then Masaland is just a dust bowl. Okay. Very hot, very windy. We get the job done, but it's not as pleasant as earlier in the year. Yeah.
As a professional hunter, is it more lucrative to do a stint in Tanzania over your career?
Absolutely. Well, for one, you don't have to use your own vehicle. You get a company cruiser. So that's a massive saving. And yes, I would say your daily rate's probably 3 times, or at least 3 times more than here in South Africa.
Okay, so it is always just good to go and experience that side, and then would you ever come back?
I do. I mean, obviously, I live here in East London, so my family's here, and if I have a chance, I still do book clients here in South Africa, in the Eastern Cape, most of the time. So I'll do 2 or 3 or 4 safaris here, but my bread is buttered in Tanzania.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. So that's it.
And quite an interesting, also the theme that's crept in is personal life. So how have you managed to, what are some of the key things that you've done to manage that, with Amber and the kids?
Yeah, I think what helped me a hell of a lot was me actually stopping hunting altogether for those years that she was miserable and pregnant. I think that saved my bacon. And then I only really went back into Tanzania once my boys were, I think Ben was 4 or 5 years old and Jack was 3. So at least they were out of nappies and could sort of help themselves a little bit more. I think that definitely did help. But also you have to have an understanding wife, and I think communication is the most important thing. I think before things hit rock bottom, you need to discuss it, or your wife has to have a buy-in and say, listen, I know you're going away for 6 months of the year, but it's our way of providing for the family, so. And it's a lot easier these days. You don't have to, you've got FaceTime and all the camps have got Wi-Fi. So you're chatting every day and sharing photos and videos. And also it's a 4-hour flight away. So if I have a huge problem back home, it'll take me 1.5 days to get home from the bush. So it's not, and if I was hunting in South Africa, I'd probably have to hunt more days of the year for sure. And it's the same year away. There's no difference being in Grahamstown and where my family's in East London, or being in Tanzania. It's just a lot more fun, and you earn more money doing it.
I've always loved the northern parts of Africa, and I was very fortunate. We did a race in Kenya, and then like I said, I explored Tanzania a little bit. I'm just so curious about how this whole thing came about of young professional hunters wanting to, because I think there's a bit of a conflict at the moment. We're losing a lot of young professional hunters now to this American boom where they're going over and farming in the States and all that sort of stuff, when they could actually be experiencing what you went through. Because in some sense, I kind of get the belief that it's made you a better conservationist and a better professional hunter, experiencing that side of the world, But so as a youngster, how, because as when I was looking at it, I remember the licensing was quite expensive to start off with. But if you've got an outfitter that backs you, so how do they get into an outfitter that?
With difficulty, I think at the moment it's the guys are quite hesitant to take on young guys, because it's actually a big responsibility, you're throwing these young guys in the deep end there big time. A lot of them don't have dangerous game experience, so it's a big responsibility. So I don't think they will not be willing to just take on anybody. You'd have to have a little bit of a history or a little bit of experience with dangerous game somewhere.
But did you meet your current outfitters at a particular place?
So Quinton Whitehead is one of the directors. Him and I used to hunt together for Jack Birmingham for Tanzania Adventures.
Okay.
So I've known him all since then, and so he became a director of the Kilimanjaro North. That's how I got involved with them.
Because it's a bit daunting. A lot of youngsters always say to me, "Well, how do I approach an outfitter? Do I send them emails and all this sort of stuff?"
Yeah.
From majority of the guys that I've met, it's all been by hook or by crook type vibe,
Absolute chance,
So I've always said to him, I said, well, just get yourself out into the industry as much as you possibly can. But Craig, what are some of the more glamorous experiences that you guys have that side? I've seen you baiting leopard and all that.
Obviously, I enjoy hunting. We hunt so many buffalo that I think we all love hunting buffalo. It's always fun tracking duggar boys and stuff. But I've taken a very big liking to hunting leopards. It's just the game. It's so much fun, and it's quite easy to get buy-in from your client. So, like, a lot of guys like to pre-bait or have a baiting car and not do the actual baiting, but I actually prefer the opposite. I like to do it all myself, and you get the buy-in from the client. They're also excited to pull out the card from the camera and see what's eating, and then it's one hell of a game, man. Leopards are clever things, and there we don't shoot at night, so you need to pull all the tricks out.
You don't shoot anything at night?
Nothing.
Really?
Half an hour before sunrise you can start hunting to half an hour after sunset. So there's no lights, none of that nonsense there. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's the challenge.
Yeah.
Is getting your cats to eat during daylight hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that just all comes with, obviously, like you said,
Yeah.
time
Also,
on the
our areas are so big and they're so good that, I mean, it's not that difficult. You just have to put a bit of effort in, put a bit of extra effort into your blinds. But that just comes with time, you know. And yeah, no, that's good fun.
Tanzania being a hotspot for the migration. Have you guys seen like a bit of commercialized negative impact on Tanzania?
It's an absolute mess. I wouldn't. I mean, it's spectacular. Don't get me wrong, but just the sheer volume of people, of tourism, of tourists going in and out, whether it's on climbing Kilimanjaro or going into the crater. I mean, I drove through Ngorongoro Crater the other day to get to Maswa Macau, and I must have passed 100 vehicles.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I'm spoilt seeing the areas I do and the wildlife experiences, and I don't have to put myself through all of that. Seeing 100 cars looking at the same line.
Are you guys protected from that as outfitters? Or do you guys not have any of the migration come through your property?
No.
Concessions?
We've got a lot of hunting areas that do border on national parks where there are photo tourism. But they're certainly not permitted to come on our roads or into our areas. Yeah, so no, we don't have a.
So they're not allowed to.
No.
Okay. Because I saw such an interesting stat the other day. Photo safaris have increased by 115%. But
I believe that, yeah.
But their GDP is still less than what hunting brings into the country,
exactly.
which was a massive win for us.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Because they get involved in any of the anti-poaching?
I'm sure some of them do. There's always a bad apple in every industry, but yeah, I'm sure they do. I'm not fully versed in the whole photographic industry at all. I'm not the right guy to be talking about it. But yes, obviously, there's certainly a place for photographic safaris in Tanzania. I mean, the Serengeti, the Crater, Tarangire, Ruaha, magnificent national parks. I mean, and they need the tourists to make it viable. Sure. I mean, I know they do get a lot of funding from overseas, but yeah, obviously, the more people they have, the better off the national parks will be. But yeah, you've got to. I mean, the age-old argument of there's just so many more vehicles, so many more emissions, so much more sewage, so much more water being used. I mean, compared to the hunting side, where one client, or you probably know the stats, I don't know it offhand, but one hunter is probably equal to thousands of photographic, just the amount of money and everything. So, yeah.
Do you guys, have you had any filtration? I was chatting to a mate of mine. He was busy managing a concession in Kenya, where they did photographic safaris.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any overflow? We've seen Botswana now, we've been overpopulated with elephant at the moment.
Yeah.
Do you guys get any of that overflow or that negative impact coming back from like big conservation projects that have just not helped? What's your elephant population at the moment?
I told you about that massive poaching incident we had. So I think in the past there's been big die-offs with a combination of, there was a very terrible drought in the 70s or something that killed a lot of the elephants. And then when there was no hunting in Tanzania, I think up until that was the 70s to the 90s, there was a huge poaching crisis. So
on
that
elephant,
yeah, and that's when all the rhinos were taken out too.
Okay.
And then they slowly built their way up, and then there was quite a big a poaching elephant incident in the 2010, 2011, 2012. But now that's sorted. So I think there's about 60,000 elephants now in Tanzania. Wow. Yeah. And only I'd say on average, like in the last 8 years, I think 5 get shot a year, 5 or 8 or 10.
Cool.
but that's largely due to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife putting a ban on ivory imports from Tanzania. Yeah, but there's been a huge exercise now with the Conservation Force, Marco Pani in particular, and John Jackson, who have helped put together the elephant management plan for Tanzania. They did it this year.
Okay.
And so we're quite confident that ban, that maybe they'll open it to a case-by-case basis where the ivory can be imported again. Currently, it can get imported to the European Union and Mexico, Canada, but just not the US. But I mean, that just shows what a ban and a trophy export or import ban does to the industry. I mean, I'd say Tanzania could comfortably shoot. I think I don't know offhand what the country quota is, but it could easily be 50. And I mean, the last few years, the guys have only shot 5, 6, 7, 8 elephants a year. So
it's wild.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge money too for the government, for everybody. Yeah.
We were, I wanted to ask you this quickly. I mean, obviously personal preference, but somebody coming out to Tanzania for the first time, what would you recommend as, like, not quite a package, but some of the species that would attract them to
so
back?
In Tanzania, it works quite a bit differently to the likes of South Africa. I guess in South Africa, you could just tell the outfit, I want to shoot a kudu and a buffalo and a daka and a whatever, and you can. Where in Tanzania, you buy different licenses. So you get a regular license, which is depending again where you're hunting. Say, for instance, we're in central Tanzania where there's lots of buffalo and stuff. So your regular license will have 2 buffalo and your general species like a zebra, a warthog, a wildebeest, a hartebeest, an impala, a waterbuck, like those simple animals. And then you get a premium license that will have your sable, your roan, your Livingston eland, hippo, croc. So it all depends on what license, what package it's not a package, but what license you get, which lists those particular animals that you can hunt. Yeah.
But you don't get one block or one concession area. You don't have all those species.
No.
You'll have to go to which.
So it all depends. So a client will come sit with us in SCR or Dallas or wherever, and we just. I mean, the first question you ask is, what is the main species you want to hunt? And he'll say, I want to shoot the gazelles. And obviously, you're going to go to either Lake Natron West or Endomet. But if he wants a leopard, then you can explain, okay, well, do you want to also hunt a hippo and a croc? Then that'll push you into those blocks, into the Kilimanjaro. Or is a hippo croc not important? Do you want to shoot, I don't know, other things? And we'll take them to Kinyangesi or Lunda or some of the other areas. So it all depends what the main species are, and then you start from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Craig, it also allows. I've social media is a bad one, but you often get a lot of negative comments and stuff on there. But I saw one of the posts. Tanzania, it's not really clear cut and dry who pays the government, who pays the outfitter and stuff, or is it like that? Because here in South Africa, we deal with everything.
I think that's absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
I think it is very clear cut, extremely clear cut. So in Tanzania, you get the national parks, which is obviously no hunting whatsoever. It's just photo tourism. And then you get game reserves, which is only hunting. So in a game reserve,
is that privately owned?
No. There's hardly anything privately owned.
Really?
And then you got to remember there are no fences either. So there's not even cattle fences in the entire country. Nothing. Even I got friends of mine who ranch with cattle near Ringa in central Tanzania. They don't have fences, so they do like a crawling system with electric fences. When I think they move their cattle twice a day with electric fences, and then they just talk to the cows and they somehow move, and then they farm them that way, not without any specific boundary or fence.
So they don't own their land or anything?
I think they do. There is some private land, but I'd say way up in the 90%, it's all government land, the wild stuff, yeah. So just to get back to the different hunting areas, so you get a game reserve, which is your most protected, I'd say, on the hunting side. So that's no people, no inhabitants, nothing. It's just a game reserve. It's like as wild as hands off as a national park. And then you get a game controlled area, which is like our Lake Natron West. So there are people living there and there are livestock, but they aren't allowed to farm. They aren't allowed to do agriculture. So that's your game controlled area. And then you get your wildlife management areas. Now that's something totally different now. So all of those are, and then you get open areas. So that's all government. And then you get wildlife management areas. In our company, we've got quite a lot of them. It's actually run by the community. And what makes it work so well is the owner of Kilombero North, he actually helped facilitate changing the law whereby the yearly block fees doesn't get paid to the government. It gets paid directly to the community into their own bank account. And then they can choose what they want to do with that money. So in the past, I think what was happening, it would go to the government and then they would only a small portion of those funds would get to the actual community. Where now we changed the law where the wildlife management area community gets 100% of that money. That's of crazy. The yearly block fee. And then, but the government still gets the trophy fee.
Okay.
Yeah. So to sum it up, you get, your block fees, an outfit has to pay a yearly block fee, and that money either goes directly to the government or it goes directly to to the community in the wildlife management area case. And then all the trophy fees goes directly to the government, whatever you shoot. Yeah.
Hiring these concessions.
So sorry, just to butt in. So that goes back. You asked me earlier why. I mean, we were talking about Tanzania being so expensive. So now you got to look at it by hearing that and say, okay, well, where's the outfitter making his money? And it's simply on the daily rate.
Okay.
So simply on the daily rate. So that's why it's so expensive. Yeah.
And have you guys? I mean, what is like a typical? Is it a rental period or concession block? How long would you typically rent it for?
So some of our wildlife management areas, we've pushed so hard and done so well in these areas that now, like Lunda, Masimba, we've got it for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shit, okay.
But you have to tick all the boxes though. So at the end of the year, the community, or whether it's a game reserve, they like do an assessment on the company and say, okay, have you shot the quota that you asked for? If not, why not? Is it because the numbers aren't there, or is it because you don't have the clients?
And these are government bodies that are coming.
Absolutely, yeah. The Tanzania government it's spectacular. It's extremely efficiently well run. Tanapa is the national park side, and then you get TAWA, Tanzania Wildlife Authority. So the hunting companies deal with TAWA, Tanzania Wildlife Authority. Extremely switched on. And the amount of research they're doing is spectacular. It's unfortunately they just need to get those stats and those papers out a bit more, but they are switched on country. Then they certainly know what they're doing when it comes to wildlife.
Because they're listening to you on the ground, which is awesome. I mean, I wonder a lot whether South Africa has too many exterior factors butting in and offering advice here and there and all that sort of stuff.
But you can't really, because it's they two totally different systems.
Sure. Yeah.
So you can't.
Are there any species there that you can't hunt?
You aren't allowed to hunt a giraffe. That is the national animal. I think if you get caught with a piece of giraffe, you get 20 years in prison.
So that's got nothing to do with numbers, just
it's just a national animal, yeah. So it's a big no-no. There's no hunting of cheetah. There's no hunting of black rhino.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think that's pretty and colobus monkeys, I think.
And then there's I don't know if there is any in Tanzania, but the Nile lechwe. That's more Zambia side, huh?
Yeah, that's Zambia.
Okay.
Yeah, the Nile lechwe.
The other thing is, have you seen on these ones, particularly more interestingly, the cheetah, have the numbers increased because of non-hunting, or do you think
I
it's
don't think
just
they've ever been hunted.
okay?
So, and cheetah, they're not prolific in the central southern blocks, but just because of the vegetation, it's not their place.
Okay.
But I mean, with the overpopulation of the Maasai people, I mean, I'm sure they've taken a bit of a hammering compared to what their numbers used to be, you know. But I mean, in the likes of the Serengeti and the Crater and those big national parks, they do very well. Yeah.
Okay. And the Maasai, what's the story? Sorry, I feel like we jump around here, but I like touching base on these things. But
Yeah.
what's the story behind the lion with the Maasai? I know they kill a lion when they become a man or something like that.
Well, they're not allowed to do that any longer. I mean,
Okay.
they've outlawed that. But any opportunity at all, they would definitely go do it. Yeah. And it's not only the Maasai that do it. There's another tribe called the Mangati, and it's for them it's exactly the same. If they can bring home the skin of a lion or the tail of a lion, then it boosts them to hero status, and then so it's more of a sport to them than anything else. Yeah.
Okay, then what are majority of the PHs there that side? Is it all South African guys that have?
I think it's quite a mix, eh? But yes, there are a lot of South African guys. There aren't many young guys, that's for sure. But I'd say, well, I'm 42. I'd say the vast majority of the guys range from like 35 to 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's
I mean, the last 2 years, we've had two great guys coming up. Old Ryan Swart and Dean Burmester. Ryan's already done his exams and everything, so he's hunting this year. And Dean, you have to be 23 to be a PH there.
Okay.
So I think Dean turns 23 next year, so he'll crack the nod then. But yeah, I mean, there are big barriers to entry there. It's not as if you can just walk in there and take a rifle and a bucky and go hunting like you can here, you know? Yeah.
It's also, it leads the question is how is the outfitter population down there? Have they increased or decreased? I know there was
I think there was a big crash. Those few years that I left Tanzania, like for instance, Eric Passanisi and his old man, they had like something like 21 areas in the Selous.
Yeah.
And I think for various reasons, and probably a lot of the reasons I don't even know about, but they unfortunately pulled out. I mean, that's a huge loss, you know?
Yeah.
But I think I think the guys did hurt before COVID and during COVID, but now I think there's probably 6. There's not many. It's probably like 8 outfitters that do pretty well. So,
you think the industry has recovered since those dark periods?
I think
COVID
so. Yeah,
and stuff.
I think it's definitely on the upper. No, for sure.
And just getting better.
And I mean, you would vouch for it. The last few Dallas Safari Club shows and SCR shows, SCR West Texas, the shows have been on fire.
Yeah.
Like in my 20 years of going to the shows, I have never seen shows so well run and so successful as they have been in the last 2 years. So maybe COVID had something to do with that, where everyone's chomping at the bit to go hunting again. But yeah, we've got huge interest there. Yeah.
And also now with the political thing, hopefully Trump comes into power and starts picking up everything again. Because people are trying to explain to people that period that when Trump was in power, I know for the South African side, but it was almost like a light switch, and the impact he had immediately was intense. So I'm sure likewise with you guys as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of the things that guys need to look out for? You mentioned tsetse flies. Malaria is a big one over there.
Big one.
So what are some of the criteria that they have to do before?
I always recommend the guys to take prophylaxis. I think Malarone is the is the popular one at the moment. I think you take it once a day.
Okay.
It shouldn't have any side effects. I don't like it when clients take doxycycline because it makes your skin very sensitive to the sun and you get burnt to pieces. So I think Melorone is the one to take. What else?
What does a normal hunting day look like? Do they need to bring hydration snacks or anything like that? Or have you guys got
everything's
covered
surprise. Yeah,
Okay.
everything's.
But it's long days out in the bush. I mean,
Yeah, it also depends on your client, but most of the time we have a lunchbox, and all our vehicles have got fridges on, so you're very comfortable.
oh, really? Fridges? Yes, you
absolutely.
Keep it out. That's yeah. No, but that's awesome. So, and then and yeah, sorry, just to get back to those areas, which area would you suggest, like for you? I mean, obviously,
again, it all depends on what you want to do. I mean, I think our company's got 16 hunting blocks now, so it's so the opportunities are endless. I think every block has a draw card. Wild and untamed, I'd say the Kilombero is a special place, the Kilombero Valley. We've got 5 areas that all connect to each other there. Super wild, but it can be tough hunting too. Lots of long grass, quite scary. Lots of hippos, lots of crocs, lots of river systems there. Tiger fishing is brilliant.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh,
that's something you guys offer as well.
Yeah. We've got the Ruhuji and Nyera rivers.
Okay.
The best tiger fishing in Africa by none. I promise.
Really?
You. Yeah. It's nothing to catch a 20-pound tiger there.
Wow.
Yeah. So that it works really well. So if you have a hunter there, and then you can take the afternoon off and go fish. Yeah. Or at lunchtime, we just have a throw from the mess. Yeah, so the Kilombero is really wild and unspoilt, with a lot of action, a lot of close stuff. It's adrenaline packed, lots of tsetse flies. Not for everybody. Some people don't enjoy that. And then you get central Tanzania. We've got Lundo Masimba, Kinyangesi, Waga. Fantastic areas for lion, leopard, buffalo, elephant. Yeah, we're very fortunate with our elephant areas. I mean, we've got definitely the best elephant areas.
So you guys have got a couple
of those.
I'll
say I was throwing out those numbers like 8 to 10 elephants a year. I mean, we're shooting probably 8.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. And then we've got fantastic Maasai land areas, Endomet, wildlife management area. Brilliant for lesser kudu, gerenuk, fringed oryx, Patterson's eland.
Because what people don't understand is it's not like a 30-minute drive to the next camp. It's days.
It can be 24-hour drive. Yeah. So we fly. I mean, we just fly from area to area unless it's next door.
So you guys have got like a little bush plane
or you charter. So we use Coastal Aviation, and they've got Pilatus or Grand Caravans. Yeah.
One of the questions I saw on that Hunting Africa or AfricaHunting.com was rifles. Is it a pain in the ass to bring them in?
No, it's fine. Eh?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Load them in case.
You get a form from the States that customs has to stamp, and it just says this rifle belongs to this person. You send it to us, and we, before the time we approve, get all the import permits.
Okay.
And then we have a representative that meets the client at the airport, and it comes through no problem.
Okay. Yeah. And then your typical safari days, how long would you say days?
We don't do hunts shorter than 10 days.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are long ones. So your 10-day, that would usually, in the normal blocks, would be 2 buffalo and a variety of plains game. And then your bigger hunts, your leopard hunts, are always 14 days. So but then you get a leopard, 3 buffalo, and everything, sable, roan, or depending where you are, croc, hippo. And then you can get a 16-day lion hunt, which is just a lion, not a leopard, and you'll get 4 buffalo and everything that's available in that area. and then a full bag which throws in an elephant also. So you're hunting elephant. That's 21 days.
21 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll have an elephant, lion, leopard, 4 buffalo, everything on license. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know it's a cut question, but obviously you guys have done a lot of good management up there and stuff. But what are like your success rates on these days? I mean, I know it's always I hate the question, but you know, just for somebody coming out there, like he's obviously got a very good chance of shooting a buffalo and
and no, you never
cats.
Well, this year I'm 100% on cats. Touch wood. Yeah.
Shit.
Haven't missed one yet. I think I've got 6 leopards and a lion.
Yeah.
Our success rate, I mean, our areas are good, So I would say if I'm booking a client at the show, I'd be honest and say, listen, you've got probably a 70% chance at a lion. Our lions we hunt have to be older than 6.
Okay.
Can't be in a pride with cubs. And so there's a whole lot of criteria. So just on that, I mean, your client's got to understand that, I mean, these are wild systems. And we have to look after them. We're not going to shoot a lion that's in a pride with cubs, and those cubs are just going to get taken out. So it needs to tick all the boxes, but I think our areas are good enough to say to warrant probably a 70% success rate. Leopards are probably a little bit higher.
Well, what's your average cat you guys shot this year?
The
leopard.
What do you mean?
Like average size,
weight-wise. Generally speaking, there's a lot of fibbing that goes on social media. I personally have only ever seen or heard about one 200-pound leopard ever shot. I think a mate of mine, Alistair James, guided that on Kitumbeni Mountain in Lake Natron South. And that was a legit, I think it was 204 pounds. We weighed it with a proper scale. I would say the vast majority of leopards that get shot throughout Africa, they're probably in between the 120 to 140 pound range. And as soon as you start getting to 160, 170, then it's a really big one. Yeah. So, ideally you'd like a 140 plus, 140 pounds. But some areas they're just not big. You go some areas in Western Tanzania, the leopards, I mean, you'd be lucky if you shoot a 140-pound cat. Or you go to the Selous, they're also not that big there. I mean, obviously there are exceptions, but generally speaking, they're not big everywhere. And it's very, I mean, we can't work it out. Why some areas 20 k's away will have enormous leopards, and 20 k's to the west, they're not that big. So I don't know.
I mean, it's always led to an interesting conversation, but I think genetics obviously is a massive.
Absolutely.
Saying that,
but,
so I'm just so intrigued with how the whole Tanzanian thing worked. Is there anywhere else would say you've earmarked in Africa that you would like to go and experience a little bit?
I've been offered the opportunity to go to the Cameroon a number of times. When I was much younger, I actually started learning French. I was going to go to the Congo, just in the off season, but it didn't work out. But no, I think I'd love to go see Cameroon just once. I don't have the ambition to go ever be a hunter there. I think quite a few of my mates do it, and they say it steals your soul. It's really tough going. But we're very fortunate in Tanzania. I mean, it's relatively speaking, it's pretty easy hunting and vast amounts of game and absolutely beautiful. Uganda would be a nice one to go to, just to see those different species there. But no, I don't have any ambition to go hunt any other countries. I'm quite happy where I am in Tanzania. Yeah.
But we've got a tradition on the podcast, where guys would ask a question, and so this question goes as follows. It says, as far as a conservation practice, what is the one practice you would like to see youngsters develop at an early age and take forward into the into the hunting industry?
probably just shooting the right animals. I think people need to learn that inches isn't everything. They should rather do it on age base than inches. So by doing that, you're actually going to be doing a lot more than just trying to shoot the biggest thing out there. Yeah.
Craig, I know you fly out this evening, but
yeah, I do.
Good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for giving me a good hour and a bit of your time there. It means a lot to me.
I could actually speak a hell of a lot more, but we're getting out of the time, yeah.
Oh, well, we've got, I mean, we can do, I would love to do this again because I think getting different perspectives around Africa as a whole is just so important. And I mean, especially your experience and coming from South Africa or from Tanzania back to South Africa, I think it offers such a unique perspective, especially for the youngsters. I mean, so, once again, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure, man. Anytime. I'd love to do it again. This is my first podcast I've ever done, so it was a bit daunting. But anyway, we got through it all right, I think.
No, we did well. So, thanks so much. And then, we'll chat soon.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cheers, bud.